We got Dr. Carrie Jones on with us. I'm so pumped about this. We spoke, it's probably been like maybe around 2018, 2019 on Facebook. You did a Facebook Live with us, and we talked about estrogen detox, the 3 different phases of detox, and how there's like not one protocol for one specific phase of detox. And this is what makes it so complicated. And so that is I know you've got a lot of great content on estrogen detoxification. So if you got anybody's interested in that, I know you probably just go to your YouTube page and check some of that out. But I want to take a second just to have you, could you just explain a little bit about your background for the audience so they can kind of get an idea of who you are, what you're currently doing. I know Dr. Carrie Jones has a huge following on Instagram. I know it's over a couple 100,000 followers. And so you're a pretty big deal. So I figured maybe you could just not necessarily brag on yourself, but just kind of give us an overview.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. I'm excited of our conversation today. But hormones, I have been in hormones pretty much my entire career. I have been a doctor over 20 years. And women's health and hormones is what I went into. I realized there was a big gap in the knowledge about women's health and hormones. I mean, so much better now, thank goodness. But back then, people were really struggling. So I saw patients. I had a brick and mortar practice for almost 15 years. And then I was in the lab world for almost a decade, focused in hormone labs and specifically women and testing their hormones and their cortisol. And now I do a mix. I help support labs. I help support supplement companies. I do a ton of education to everybody, consumers to practitioners, all about hormones and especially perimenopausal, menopausal. But again, 20 years, I've been in fertility. I've been in PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, and really just covered the gamut. But I have found that as I've gotten older, what I talk about has gotten older. So that's really my background.
That's awesome. I love that little saying that you give on your videos. Like, have you ever felt like it's hurting cats with your hormones? And it's so funny. Well, today we're going to be talking a little bit about infertility, if that's okay with you. I know a lot of like women and couples that are struggling with that currently. And I just thought maybe that you might be able to give us some direction on, healthy lifestyle and just overall direction for people that, run into these particular issues with the infertility. So I don't know if let's just maybe start by if a couple ends up in that position where they're struggling, like what would be like the first direction that you might give them, and then maybe we could talk about some lifestyle factors, supplemental things and things like that might be beneficial.
Absolutely. And with fertility, it takes 2 to tango. So his sperm health and his hormone health and his lifestyle health and body health are equally as important as her. We have so much research now compared to where we were on the male factor part of infertility. And I bring this up not at all to shame men, but to just have everyone recognize the importance. A lot of the burden gets put on women of like, you need to get worked up. You're the reason we can't get pregnant. You're the reason there's miscarriage or whatever. And everyone's forgetting like literally his genetics, his DNA are half the equation here. So whatever we do, it's
interesting that you mentioned that because it's interesting that you mentioned that because 2 of the people that I know closely, they're saying it, it's the male side that they, so yes. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's important to know. The second thing I always do is timing. I literally just I had a meeting earlier today and we were going over month-long hormone tests. So where a woman has collected her hormones all month long. One of the cases we were covering, she'd been trying to get pregnant and they thought she was ovulating. So releasing the egg around day like 11, 12. And it turns out she wasn't ovulating till like 16, 17, 18, kind of depends there. So she was missing the mark. They were missing the mark every time. So it wasn't this big hormone problem. It wasn't a sperm problem. It wasn't, a diet or lifestyle factor problem. It was quite literally a timing problem. And once we, I'm like, okay,
really
go back and tell them.
There, huh?
Yes, it's a very simple fix. So I always say, let's find out when do you actually really ovulate? Like, let's get some data on you. How consistent are you? How are your cycles, etc.? Now, a lot of women are already testing this, but a lot of women aren't, and maybe this is a new concept for them. If somebody listening says, nope, I've been testing, we are dialed in, I know what's going on, but I still can't get pregnant. I'm like, all right, now we get into your background. Now we get into what's going on, other symptoms, life, body history, etc. And we get some blood work, but we do the same for him as well, because there's so many interfering factors with fertility and the health of the egg or the health of the sperm or implantation, etc., that we can modify on our own, that we can change on our own. And I love that you can be so proactive when it comes to your own fertility journey. So I'll lead with that. It's a lot of information, but I think it's important people realize there's so much we can do.
Yeah. There's obviously probably a lot of different protocols when it comes to that similar just about everything. What I found when I was a personal trainer, we talked about it before, is it's so complex, and so it's not like just saying, hey, throw this supplement or throw this one thing or this will fix it, and a lot of the times it's a variable of things. There's lots of variables that you can do, but a lot of the lifestyle factors can really aid in so many of these health challenges that we have. And so I would love to be able to talk about some of those lifestyle habits, maybe some supplementation, or maybe some different protocols based off of different circumstances. I don't know which direction would be the best to go there.
The most, I would say the most like foundational are the things like what you're eating. So your blood sugar. Are you eating nutritious foods? Are you eating the rainbow? Are you getting all those nutrients in? Want to make sure we're getting, like, how's your digestion? Because once you eat those things, are you able to break them down and absorb them? I want to know things about your sleep. Can you fall asleep? Can you stay asleep? How long do you sleep? I mean, even there's research to show that men, if they just drop their sleep down to about 5 hours a night, their testosterone can drop 10 to 15%. And that can, of course, impact the health of the sperm as well, as testosterone plays a role. And a lot of men maybe drop their sleep down to 5 hours. They have insomnia, or they're traveling, or they're video gaming, or whatever it is. They're up late at night, they're out. And over time, so over chronic time, like, that really just can take a toll on them. Even exercise. Are you not exercising at all? Or maybe you're over exercising. And then the type of exercise you're doing. Again, I don't mean to beat up on men. We just have all this research to show, even bike, men get really into bikes, and we know that all that pressure in the groin area, depending on the bike seat they're using and the type of biking they're doing over and over and over, might be negatively impacting health and quality of the sperm. Just like with women who are maybe, like, let's say, you probably saw this all the time, overtraining, under recovery, under eating, and that absolutely messes with their hormones, how and when they release an egg, how they feel. And so these little lifestyle tweaks sound ridiculous, and yet they're so important when it comes to hormone production, egg quality, sperm quality, and fertility.
Yeah, you make a great point there, because like when I was training people, it was mainly middle-aged women. And women naturally, I feel, have so much more of a nurturing, they're always putting everybody else first, and they're putting themselves last. And so with like what you were saying is, like, they're already stressed to the max with a full-time job. Then they're trying to keep the family together. Then they're going to all the ball games, and then they're trying to, take care of the laundry. They're staying up late, and then they're trying to, like, cut their calories out because they think it's all about calories. And then they're trying to, work out and add more stress on top of all this other stress. And then it's just counterproductive to the very thing, the goal that they're trying to get, right? And then on the sleeping thing, I know you've talked about too. Men have that mentality of just, well, I'll sleep when I die, right? Like, I don't I don't need sleep. And then, like you said, they're watching their phones late, and then their circadian rhythm gets all out of whack. And I know you and Mike Mutzel talked a lot about the circadian rhythm back in the day and stuff like that, and that was a really beneficial podcast. But it's like, it's just part of our culture, all these poor. And I think the fitness industry does a bad job, because it's always these quick fixes of like, hey, take this or just this diet and fix it really easy. And oftentimes they're causing more problems because of this like calorie restriction and stuff like that. So
yeah. And then you're trying to get pregnant, right? So then
yeah.
as the woman, she's doing all this calorie restriction, and at the same time trying to get implantation and then grow a human in a calorie deficit. Not ideal. We want you as nutrition. We want your nutrition, as quality as possible, just all around. I mean, not even for fertility, but just even to make hormones in the first place, we make them in our mitochondria. So if everybody remembers from school, right? Our mitochondria are cellular powerhouses. They literally produce ATP, which are like the electricity or power that run through our cells and help us do the things. But it does a lot of side jobs too. And one of its side jobs is to produce hormones, depending what gland or organ it's in. So it actually makes your testosterone, my testosterone, our estrogens, our progesterone, our cortisol. It's the first step for a lot of this. And our mitochondria, they can get beat up, and they need, proper nutrition, and they need your blood sugar to be healthy. They need you sleeping. They need you having fresh air and getting some sunlight, and like all the things we've been taught. We're like, oh, it's too easy. What's the supplement? What's the one thing I can take? Like, I promise, if we knew the one thing, I would just give you the one thing. But this is why we call these the foundations, because they truly play a foundational role. And the reason is, people sometimes, it's helpful to know, like, well, why? Like, why do I care so much? So when it comes to reproduction, whether you want to get pregnant or not, women's whole body revolves around reproduction. So we go through puberty with the whole point of getting our period, but it's not even our period, it's ovulating, so that we can reproduce if we want to reproduce, in theory. So all the feedback, everything in our body to the brain is like, are we healthy enough? Are we strong enough? All systems go to become pregnant? And so if those systems are completely off kilter, we're high stress, we're not sleeping, we're changing time zones, we're overtraining, or we're not training at all. We just sit sedentary at our life all day. If you're drinking, you're smoking, you're straight West Coasting, like you're doing all the things you should be doing.
Straight West Coast, I like that.
Right. It's going to go back to the brain, and the brain's going to go, oh, not this month. This is not a good reproduction month. Okay. Now, it's unfair because we all know stories of somebody who's not that healthy, who managed to get pregnant, and yet you're like, well, why not me? I'm like, I know, the body is weird. I don't know, but these are the things we know do give direct feedback to the brain, which then directly communicates to the ovaries if this is a go month or a no-go month. And so knowing that information just as the foundation, I'm like, oh my gosh, we can control a lot of that. We can help improve a lot think
What's the guy's name that wrote the Dirty Jeans book?
Ben Lynch.
I know you guys are good friends. Yeah. I think there probably could be a lot going on there as far as too, like cleaning up your jeans and stuff like that.
Absolutely. They impact your genetics.
I also want to touch on you're talking about, diet and hormone production and stuff like that. But so fats are cholesterol is a huge part of hormone production, right? So, like that's one of the couple reasons why I'm a big fan of the ketogenic diet. But you also mentioned insulin, and I read Dr. Ben Bickman's book about why we get sick and how almost every chronic disease is really always tied to blood sugar and insulin, like you were just talking about. But could you maybe kind of speak on those couple things and maybe the genes like we were talking about?
Yeah, so the glucose insulin, we sort of lump that under metabolic health and metabolism. Now, a lot of people think metabolism is how I lose weight, right? Metabolism is actually like how we produce, utilize, move energy through our body, how we break things down and utilize it, etc. So when I remember the mitochondria, we're going to go back to the mitochondria. So when you have glucose and insulin issues, that can directly negatively impact the health of the mitochondria. So our little cellular powerhouses, our little factories, won't function as well when we are in an unhealthy metabolic state. Our glucose is too high, our insulin's too high, or we're swinging back and forth. You go from hungry to hangry to high glucose because you're starving, so you had quick sugar, and now it's up and then it's down, and that's how you just kind of ride that roller coaster. Well, the mitochondria don't like that. That doesn't work for
Mm-hmm.
them. And so they then struggle. So if they're struggling,
Mm.
now you're going to potentially struggle with energy output.
Yeah.
So you may feel your body on a low energy, literally, you might be tired, but it may also be low energy in a lot of what you do. You have low energy, you don't grow hair like you want to. You have low energy, your mood's not like what you want to. You have low energy, you can't burn fat like you want to. You have low energy, you can't release an egg or build a sperm like you want to. So all of a sudden you can see your full spectrum light factory, mitochondria suddenly become candlelight. And candlelight's great in a romantic dinner, but it's not great when you're trying to grow hair or get pregnant. Like, I want full spectrum light. So glucose and insulin play such a big role in this. And glucose and insulin also can signal to the brain, like, inflammation, we have problems, which just doubles back to the ovaries of like, ooh, not today, or down to the testicles for the sperm of like, you're not going to be the healthiest sperm possible. In fact, you're going to be kind of funny looking and you're going to be slow, and that's not going to help us get pregnant. So understanding glucose and insulin, which thankfully has become so much more available, a glucose test, even if you bought a glucometer online, it's not that expensive. It's generally, the glucose test is generally covered by insurance, insulin generally covered by insurance. Now we have continuous glucose monitors that in instances like this might be quite helpful to wear for 2 weeks or 4 weeks to get an idea of how food are impacting you and your mood and your hormones. And so
I would tell people all the time
to
check, measure your glucose throughout a period of time will really give you a great overall outlook of your health, metabolic health. And
I know the people who argue and say, well, we don't want to like a continuous glucose monitor, for example. If you use it in somebody not diabetic, they're designed for monitoring diabetes. But if you don't have diabetes, then the people against it are like, well, you may do more harm than good. We don't have the research on that. What are you trying to accomplish? And I'm like, oh, I'm actually trying to get people to coordinate or correlate, or both, their symptoms, how they feel with what they're eating in the day. If you wake up in the morning and have toast with butter and jam and coffee with cream and sugar, and within an hour or two, your energy is crashed. So now you're craving more coffee, right? Like, you can get in these, but then all of a sudden you look at your glucose and you're like, oh man, my glucose shot through the roof. I mean, and then it crashed down, like crashed. You can start to correlate, like, you're not diabetic, of course, but you felt like crap. And it's causing you to make choices maybe you don't want to make or wouldn't have normally made with your food or your caffeine habits or your hydration habits or your exercise habits. And so it can just really help people tune in and pay attention to the signals their body's trying to give them, like, in real time. So I agree with you. I think it's important to check your glucose.
I love what you're saying. It's like the idea of being in tune with and listening to your body. Your body, like, when when you don't feel right, it's the body's signal to you to listen. But oftentimes we don't really listen to those cues, or really don't know what we're looking for. But I think, like what you're saying, is if you have something to measure and you're like, oh, this is why, and then correlate that with how you feel, and then you can like make adjustments. I absolutely love that. I had another thought in my head and it just totally flew away.
All about the glucose talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I will add to that though, when you are pregnant, knowing your blood sugar going into pregnancy, especially as a woman, will help reduce the risk of gestational diabetes, as an example. And will not, it'll help you maybe not have a high birth weight baby, like a big baby, which is very correlated to blood sugar, of course. And so if you go into the whole process with really healthy glucose levels, really healthy dietary habits, then you can reduce the risk of those potential complications in pregnancy, which of course is what we want. But it's not taught that often to women, like the whole focus is like, get pregnant, stay pregnant. And I understand that, but also let's be as healthy as possible if we can.
So the thought just came back to me when you brought up the challenges that people bring up for the continual glucose monitor. Like, what I'm curious, what are the specific things they're saying would be wrong with that?
So the continuous glucose monitor is only indicated for type 2 diabetes, type 1 or type 2, I should say, diabetes diagnoses and monitoring as an example, whereas it's not designed for the average non-diabetic person. That's not what it was designed for, to follow their glucose.
Okay.
So the people who push back are like, well, first of all, if everyone's using them, we may have a shortage. Number two,
Okay.
we don't act, the ups and downs of glucose aren't maybe the same as somebody who has diabetes, and we shouldn't freak out over them. Like, you don't have to have a completely flatlined glucose all the time. That's not how it works. It's designed to go up and down. And then what do? I don't want to scare people. So that's usually the pushback I get of, why would you give it to a non-diabetic? And I push back on them and say, well, I don't want them to develop diabetes. And since 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, then I don't want to develop diabetes.
Yeah.
And I also want them to get that immediate feedback when they say to me, I'm super tired, or I need a nap, I need more caffeine. I have anxiety that comes and goes, which can be related to your blood sugar going up and down. So if I can show you, like when you had that bowl of cereal and then you crashed an hour later and needed coffee at work, it can go hand in hand. Like, let's start with protein instead. Or your mid-afternoon crash might be because of what you had at lunch, or that the alcohol, here's the impact it had on your glucose, and then your sleep at night, etc. When people can see this real-time correlation, again, I'm not saying diabetes, but I am saying real-time correlation. Now we can start to make maybe healthier choices and options, or at least if you don't make the healthy choice or option, you don't panic. You're just like, well, yep, I made the choice. I had a bagel for breakfast. It's no wonder I need a nap.
Well, and I love exactly what you're saying. And I know you've talked about this extensively on other podcasts, listening to you. And, you know, it's in a lot of ways, our medical system is so backwards. Instead of being preventative, it's always like, well, wait till something actually bad happens and then we'll, you know, treat it. But I love that. What about, I know you're a big fan of weight training, and I am too. So like you were talking earlier about like how there's different types of exercises that are better for overall health and longevity than maybe others. What is it about weight training that might be really helpful for people in these types of situations?
So skeletal muscle is probably one of the most important things we need to protect as we get older. And that is, we want to start at any age. So right now, the movement you'll see a lot on social media and in the research are the women who are over 40, and especially over 50. You're going to see over and over again on, you know, like, oh, you need to weight train to preserve your skeletal muscle, or you need to start building your skeletal muscle once you get perimenopause. And I'm like, well, hold on. What about the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds? Like, we need that skeletal muscle for health span, for not just longevity. Longevity is how long you're going to live, but how healthy are you going to be able to get down on the floor and get back up without a lot of assistance or pain? Are you going to be able to lift your carry-on bag over your head at the airplane at, you know, 80 years old? Are you going to be able to balance and be able to walk down the stairs without needing to hold the rail when you're 80 years old? We don't think about that when we're 20 and 30. So let's go down to that age. So I want skeletal muscle, because the more skeletal muscle you have, often the more metabolically healthy you are. Skeletal muscle plays a big role in how you do or don't manage your glucose and even your insulin, or even inflammation. And we don't want to have what's called sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting or muscle loss as you get older. Now, when you weight train, as you know, that's different than my cardio bunnies. Because sometimes we get the people who love to run, and they love the elliptical, and they love their bike class, and they're doing this constant cardio, or they're doing cardio for an hour in the morning and then a boot camp in the afternoon, or lifting, you know, they're just pushing so much. And now they've pushed themselves into this like high cortisol, fight or flight type of response. And even because they're just constantly, like, it burns themselves out. Like, we all have those women who they've tried to lose weight, they're trying to get healthy. So what do? They add more cardio, and then they're like, but I've gained weight, or I'm more fluffy, I'm more puffy. Like, I feel like it's doing the opposite. Like, that we need skeletal muscle. We need to build that lean muscle mass. I'm not opposed with cardio at all, You know, if you love to run, that's how you get your stress out. But like, let's dial it back so it's not your whole life, and let's evaluate your skeletal muscle. And I am appreciating that is starting to really make headlines, honestly, just in social media, where I see women realizing how much cardio they're doing, or that's the only exercise they do, but they haven't lifted a weight in a decade.
Yeah, I'm so with you on all those things. I think about I know Gabrielle Lyons, she talks about this a lot, but like muscle impacts every part of your health. Like, but in particular, like you said, blood sugar, because your body stores stored sugar in your muscles and in your liver, right? So if you're building more muscle, you're going to have a lot more storage capacity to store that and regulate blood
sugar. Utilization, when you're using your skeletal muscle and you've built good skeletal muscle, then it's easier for your body to use that glucose without having to rely so much on the insulin aspect of it. And guess what happens when you exercise and build muscle? You improve the health of and increase your mitochondria. Yeah, exactly. So it's like win, 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 win all the way around the circle.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think women, like you said, it's just a shame because, you know, I think they think that if they lift weights, they're going to get this super bulky and stuff like that. And like, man, when you compare it to these women that are on these magazines or whatever it is, like, and they're juicing it up and they're working out like 24/7, and there's like all these supplements. I'm like, man, like if you only understood it, like I train literally like 4 days a week, 45 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. And you build that into a healthy lifestyle, and you'll have really good skeletal muscle, and you'll look good, you'll feel better, and it's going to improve every aspect of your health. And it's just a shame that so many women, you know, think that way. And not to mention, I read a book by the Mind Pump guys, I forget their name, but they did a really good job of explaining how, like, when you're doing cardio, your body's really good at adapting. It's an adaptive response. So your body can become really efficient at running. But whenever you lift something or you do resistance training, it really turns on that central nervous system and tells the brain to build muscle. And
I mean, think about the people we know who have very active jobs, and they may not be that healthy. You know, I look at people who are on their feet all day long, right? People who are, you know, delivery drivers, even nurses, God bless them. Like people who are teachers. I am active, Carrie. I move all day long, right? But your body's adapted. There's no progressive overload there. You do the same thing running. Yeah, you for sure get your 15, 20,000 steps. Absolutely. But there's no progressive overload in the skeletal muscle part. So you're missing that signal. And so what they'll do is they'll go, well, I get my 15,000 steps in my job, if they're like very active jobs. And then I go run, and then I get on the elliptical, or then I go take spin class, and I'm not losing weight. I'm like, I know, because you then need to go lift. We need to start doing progressive overload to support your muscle mass.
And then I think, to add to your point, is if they're already doing, you know, on their feet all day, doing all this stuff, and then they're adding, again, go back to what we talked about earlier, add more stress on top of stress, like it becomes counterproductive to the goal that you're wanting. And you think you're doing a good thing, but sometimes, like you said, you need to focus on, I always would tell my clients, like I would build it like around this 5 key areas: your nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress, and toxins. And sometimes it would be like for those like driving people, like grinding guys, you know, that had their businesses or whatever. It would be like, dude, you need the problem isn't that you need to go run another 10 miles. You need to maybe like get some more sleep.
Yes.
Or some of these other things that you were talking about. And it's like putting them all together, not just one or the other. And then, you know, doesn't muscle also release like anti-inflammatory molecules as well?
Yeah. Myokines.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we have a lot of messengers in the body, right? So one of the people probably have heard of inflammatory cytokines, which basically are little messengers that are pro-inflammatory. And when you're sick, when you've cut yourself, when you've come in contact with somebody who's quite sick and coughing all over you. Like, I want my pro-inflammatory to go up temporarily and do their job. Like, help me, help my immune system. Don't get me sick, fix my cut, whatever it is. But I need you to go away and go down after that.
Yeah.
But what happens is that it seems like we're a pro-inflammatory society. We have this chronic stress, chronic go, chronic toxins, chronic ultra processed food. And so instead of my pro-inflammatory messengers popping out, doing their job and going away, they pop out and stay. And then it just adds fuel to the fire. It's just increases fat mass, for example. It increases pain. It increases my immune system in a negative way. For some people, it might increase joint destruction. I mean, it can show up as a variety of things for people. And it doesn't get talked about. So I'm so glad you're bringing this, like you talk about it. I'm so glad, because people go to the doctor and go, why do my joints hurt? Why am I so tired? Like, why this? Why am I always sick? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, for so many years, like you said, it's always the advice has just always been like pound the treadmill, and it's just like it's this mindset of like calories in and calories out. I got to burn more calories. When in reality too, that's another big thing. It's like, man, if you have more muscle, skeletal muscle, then you're going to burn so many more calories at a resting rate. So I never understood, why you wouldn't want to, if, like you said, if it's running something that you love to do, like, great, by all means, like, I'm not against it, but it's like, well, but what are your goals? Like, is it health and longevity? Well, then what is going to help you like best get you there? And so that's been like my approach. The next follow-up question I think I had was, and I want to be respectful of your time too. So just let me know if you need to, get off.
No, I'm good. Let's keep talking.
But if somebody is dealing with infertility, in terms of like where they go, like, would you recommend like more of like a functional medicine approach, find it like a doctor, or, is it possible they might get the wrong advice if they're sometimes going to like the conventional approach of?
That is such a good question, because like anything, it depends on who their practitioner is. So even a conventional practitioner, somebody's OBGYN or their nurse practitioner or physician's assistant, they go see them and say, we're trying to get pregnant. And there's a difference between we're going to start and we've been trying, because then it becomes, well, how old are you? Because usually there's some cutoffs, like you have to try for 6 months. If you haven't been successful in 6 months, then we need to do some workup. If you're over 35, we cut that month down. We cut it down to 3 months. If you're over 40, we're like, well, we probably should work you up now. That's conventionally kind of the guideline they follow. I'm a little different. I feel if you say to me in casual passing at a visit, I think we're going to start to get pregnant, I'm like, now we're doing workup. I'm like, why would I make you wait 6 months to find out?
That would be
you have
brutal.
A vitamin D problem, right? Or a B problem, you're anemic or whatever. You don't make great levels of progesterone, or his sperm count's low, or his testosterone's bad, or he has a thyroid problem. I want to know this right now. So I hope the practitioner you see, whether you're going to try or you've been trying, is like, cool, let's get you worked up and make sure we're not missing anything either directly or peripherally. Now, what I do see, I'm all for reproductive fertility, the assisted reproduction. So if you do like IUI, intrauterine insemination, IVF, of course, in vitro, I'm glad we have it. I'm for it. But I do find the workup that they do is very different, because they're like, well, what do we care? This is how we're gonna control your cycle. We're gonna, get eggs. We're gonna have egg meet sperm. We're gonna implant.
Yeah.
Like, this is the order we go in. I don't really care about your B vitamins. I don't really care about your vitamin D. Like, I'm gonna give you progesterone, so I don't care about your progesterone. So I don't blame them at all.
It's kind of like if you have a gallbladder attack, let's just rip your gallbladder out.
Exactly. So I'm glad we have it. And I wish if you jump right into an IVF clinic, I wish it would. There are some IVF clinics, thankfully, that are a lot more functional. They're very well rounded. They do a lot of blood work. They make sure your nutrition's dialed in. They have you see an acupuncturist. I mean, they definitely have some very cool IVF clinics out there, but not all of them are. So people listening, if that resonates with you, if you're like that's the kind of clinic I want to go to, then look it up online, interview, talk to the front desk if that's the direction they send you. If you go see your OBGYN and they kind of brush you off, or they say, well, give it 6 months and come back to me, good luck, and you want something more thorough, speak up for yourself. Say, look, I'm looking to get worked up now. I don't want to wait 6 months. I don't want to find out in 6 months that we have a problem. I want to find out now. And if they won't do it, it's totally okay to get a new practitioner. Just like I give this example. If you have a dog and you take your dog to a new vet and the vet is mean and talks down to you and is mean to your dog, you would find a new vet.
Yeah.
No question, right? It's the same for you. If your practitioner is not meeting your needs and not helping you the way you would like to be helped as best they can, then it's totally okay to find a new practitioner and get this workup.
Yeah, I think I just recently saw a post you put up too that speaks to the same topic. Is like, just because they do blood work and they go by the average, like, doesn't mean it's like optimal, right? Like, so like they might look at the blood work and be like, oh, you're in good range in here, when you really got some problems that need to be addressed. But can you speak to that a little bit?
Or you'll say, we're looking to become pregnant. Can you test my hormones? I want to be worked up for everything. I hear this all the time. I want to be worked up for everything. And their practitioner says, sure, okay, send you to the lab, you go get your blood drawn. And it's very, very, very basic things. It's what's called a CBC, a complete blood count. These are your red and white blood cells. They may do a metabolic panel, which are your glucose, liver enzymes, electrolytes, calcium. And maybe they'll run one of the thyroid markers called a TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Maybe if you're fasting, they'll add on a cholesterol. It's very bare minimum stuff, and it's important if any of them are off, but it's probably not what you were thinking of in the first point. In your head, you're like, I want the hormone she's talking about. I want a full thyroid panel. I want iron and D and B12. I want my progesterone tested. I want my testosterone tested, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not considered normal, a typical workup that I have found in a lot of conventional medicine. They stick with red and white blood cells, a metabolic panel, and kind of, maybe something else and call it good. So I also want people to realize your idea of a full workup and their idea of a full workup may not be the same. So this requires you to make a list. Start listing out the things we're talking about of like, you know what, I've never had my iron tested. Iron goes on the list. Oh my gosh, have I had vitamin D tested? I don't think so. Vitamin D goes on the list. Like, you know what, I do want my testosterone checked. Testosterone goes on the list. And then you can ask when you see your practitioner, like, hey, I want a full workup and here are the things I'm thinking. I think it's helpful.
I feel like too, like often what happens is you don't have a practitioner too that really knows how to read the workups as well too. Cause like cholesterol, for example, is like, you could go on a whole rabbit trail on that, but like the type of cholesterol, and typically they'll just read the like overall cholesterol instead of the, the particle size and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, your cholesterol's high because it's over this amount, but like they're not really taking in consideration the other context of where your LDL is and your HDL and ratio, and then the type particle size and like
it's true. It's just like what you said earlier of in range versus optimal. There's an iron marker called ferritin, and the range is massive. Depending on the lab, it could be 11 to 300. Okay. So if you're at 12 or you're at 299, you are still considered in range. And some healthcare systems will tell you you're in range there. Some healthcare systems will actually send you your report back. You'll get a message in your portal that says you have labs, and it'll say everything's in range. And you're like, hold on, I am at 299 and 300 is the cutoff. And they're like, yeah, that's in range. What's really fascinating now is that AI is really helping people to become more optimized in their labs. I am now seeing frustrated patients who are writing ChatGPT as an example, and they're asking ChatGPT, like, I need you to think like a world-class functional medicine practitioner. Wow. Here are my labs. What do you see? And they're getting it's not perfect. Don't outsource your medicine to ChatGPT. But if you don't know, you can have AI at least explain it to you. If you have a ferritin that looks weird to you, Ask it, what is ferritin? What happens if it's low or high or whatever it is? And the first stop is you getting educated. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be in the medical field. But a lot of this, you know, is easy to understand, and then you can be prepared.
Yeah. With, you know, kind of along those lines too is like working up, be able to find like you said, digestive issues, or if your gut health isn't good, you have leaky gut, all those things that like a lot of practitioners don't even really believe it in leaky gut, or
which is it's so funny to me, because there's a lot of really cool research. Leaky gut is kind of a gross, funny name, but in our intestinal tract,
kind of is.
It's right, like leaky. I don't want leaky. That's weird. But when you think of your intestines, it's a big tube. It's a big tube from your mouth all the way down to the other end, and it has gates all along the way. And so if you think of think of a neighborhood, and all the houses in the neighborhood have fences and there's gates, you know, to get in your own backyard. Those gates in the neighborhood are there for a reason. It's to keep your dog and your kids in the backyard. It's to keep the riffraff out. You know, it's there for a reason. But if your gate starts to fall off its hinges and there's a hole, now all of a sudden your dog gets out and your kid wanders away, and like, who knows who gets in your backyard. And it's the same in the intestines. So these gates are called tight junctions, and they're essentially a gate system that says, okay, you ate protein, like you ate a steak, and it broke down to amino acids. And I like these amino acids. I'm going to let them cross through the bloodstream. Oh, there's B12 and iron. I'm going to let B12 and iron come through too. Oh, no, there's salmonella. No, you can't come. You have to stay. You need to go out. And so the gate will close. And so when these gates become rickety, if they start to fall apart, we call it leaky, because things leak through the gates that they shouldn't. And it gets worse as people get older. It gets worse for women as they get close to menopause and into menopause. And so it's a real disservice when practitioners are like, that doesn't exist, or there's nothing we can do. Like, here's a proton pump inhibitor. Best of luck. Like, no.
Yeah. Oh my
gosh. No.
Yeah, there's so many variables. And that's one of the things that I would always just try to let people know that I was working with. It's like, man, it's not simple. It's not like, and it can make it frustrating, but at the same token, if you can get down to the root causes and really find out what's going on, then you've got tools and things that you can actually apply to, you know, help fix it.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're just putting I think a Band-Aid approach on it and whatnot. And so, yeah, this talk has been fabulous. Do you have any other thoughts on just infertility that we didn't go over that might be important for the listener? Or
yes, so I just really want to reiterate again, I think it's important, like, it takes two, and and it can seem like she's a lot more complicated, so she needs a lot more workup, just because her hormones change more often, and we have to make sure she's ovulating or releasing an egg. But those sperm are really fragile. So you mentioned way in the beginning, can we talk about supplements and things? Some of the big supplements that help support, like, our mitochondria, so hormone production, the actual egg itself, the sperm, are antioxidants. So we didn't even talk about toxins, but because the egg and the sperm are kind of fragile and impressionable, we know there's research on parabens, phthalates, you know, the forever chemicals, the micro and nanoplastics, and those can greatly affect the fragile egg and the fragile sperm. And the process of making a hormone, or the process of releasing an egg, or the process of the sperm doing its job, so wiggling its tail to get forward, requires a lot of energy. And therefore it requires a lot of also antioxidants with it. And so even just you hear about, like, eat the rainbow, eat your vegetables, eat colorful fruits, or take antioxidants like CoQ10 and vitamin E and, you know, vitamin D and glutathione, and, you know, the part, like blueberries, the reason we eat blueberries, and
love blueberries,
right? Like, those things are beneficial for the health of our cells and the egg and sperm and fertility. But we can also minimize the exposure as well. You can choose not to drink out of plastic. We can choose not to use, you know, very chemically based fragranced detergent and
Mm.
cleaning supplies, and what you reheat your food in, what you store your food in, think like just these little. We can't control everything. I'm not asking
Yeah.
you to be perfect. You can't be perfect, but these micro changes, your makeup, your lotion,
Yeah.
your lubrication,
Yes.
like all these things, like read the label and try to choose cleaner if you can.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how many times you heat up plastic in the microwave and those leach into your food, and like it's just like common everyday thing that people don't think about. It's like
All the time. Even think about like you go to get like Thai food, right? You go get
Yeah.
soup, you get pho, you get curry. It's always in a plastic container because it's liquidy. And then
Mhm.
the plastic container is always squishy because it's super hot liquid against a plastic container, and now you're just leaching plastic out. And again,
Yeah.
I still don't worry, I eat Thai, I eat pho, I eat these things,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm very aware of it, and I try to
Yeah, and
dump it out when I get home.
you're more conscious when you
Yes.
conscientious when you do it. You're right. So like sometimes like we're at church and they have the coffee bar, and they got the the cups, and I'll have a couple cups of coffee, but
Yes.
that's not something that I do on a regular basis.
Or don't use the
And
lid, right? You like don't
yeah,
use the
okay.
coffee cup, but whenever I'm at a conference or if I get something to go, I'm a tea drinker. I just won't use the plastic lid on top. Like I won't sip through the plastic lid because that's
a
hot
great point.
liquid coming through a soft plastic lid. And so I'm just trying to minimize. I'm aware the inside of
Yeah.
the coffee cup is
I was going
lined
to
with
ask you
plastic.
because I thought like don't they align it with some
They
sort
totally
of like
do. Yes. Yes. Yep.
film or yeah.
But I'm just trying to minimize.
I
just
right.
don't use the lid.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is you can't cut everything out all the
Can't cut
time.
everything
But yeah,
out.
if you could just be conscious about it and start to do it on a regular basis and
Yeah.
make habits. I mean, to me, everything, whether it's your training or wherever it is, it's like, how can we develop habits that are sustainable?
Yeah.
That a lot of times what I found personally myself and other people in their life, and this is more of just like practical, just mindsets, is like a lot of times people go to an extreme of something, and
Yes.
like when you're really, really extreme, to me, something always suffers. If you think about like your let's say you want to make money and you just want to be a workaholic. Well, your
Yeah.
relationships are going to suffer, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
completely extreme. But like I don't know, there's always
Trade-offs.
like I always think of like, okay, make some priorities, like what's important in your life. And what I would tell people is like, what's your top priorities? List them out, and then like it becomes very easy, kind of like what to say no to, and then build consistent habits in those areas that you can do as a lifestyle for the rest of your life. And that's been my kind of approach. So
I love it. I mean, those are the as humans, not always, but a lot of the time, like we're in our own way. If you make a list of your priorities, but you recognize you're reaching for snacks and sugar and you live off caffeine and that glass of wine every single night, and oh gosh, you haven't worked out in a couple months, like that part of health starts and stops with you.
Yeah, I feel like that helps too, like the busy mom, that's the nurture, like that we talked about earlier, because so many times, like I said, it was her putting everybody else first, and there wasn't that self-care. And I always spent a lot of time too saying, hey, like it's not selfish to take care of yourself, because ultimately you're going to be more effective and better when you are there, when you are present, because you're going to have better energy, you're not going to be as moody, you're going to feel better. All those things. And so you're actually it's actually the opposite of being selfish. And so that's just maybe a little side nugget, but
you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what happens is they get empty and they become empty in their 40s, right at the time they're into perimenopause. So they've gone through their fertility journey. They have, kids, and now they're like, I'm completely burned out. Nothing is working. I'm so tired. And oh, by the way, I'm going through perimenopause. And that's like a perfect storm for disaster. I don't want that at all. I want you in your 30s filling your cup regularly so that the 40s are easier for you.
Well, Dr. Carrie, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk forever. I want to definitely honor your time, and hopefully we could do this again and whatnot. I have one person that wrote on here. I was going to see if there's any questions, but my wife and I are currently struggling. Found out I was the issue. Guys need to get their analysis done.
Yes.
So yeah, I think he was just agreeing with what you were saying. So that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
But yeah,
there's a lot you can do. There's a lot you can do for the sperm. So they're very impressionable, but they're also very, like, that means they're impressionable for all the good things too. The diet, the lifestyle, the supplements, the antioxidants, that, you know, they can go back the other way.
That's tremendous. I love that. I love that we can actually take some of the power in our own hands, and that there are things that we can do, and you're not just left like helpless. I mean, I think so many people do feel like that, where they're helpless, and a lot of times it's just, you can apply a lot of these lifestyle factors that Dr. Carrie was talking about, and she has so much great content out there, guys. I mean, like, I just recommend any of you that are watching, the whole three of you, go check her videos out. I've just learned so much from you. I'm so grateful, and that's why I'm so grateful for you to even jump on. I feel like I'm just this nobody out here, and you were just so kind to take your time and hang out and chat about health, which I love. And I know you had a very busy day, but is there any places that people can go to find you specifically? I know you're on Instagram and Facebook, and
thankfully it's
and now you're on YouTube.
I'm now on YouTube. I have a brand new podcast based off my YouTube, but thankfully everything is Dr. Carrie Jones. So DrCarrie Jones. So on my website, Dr. Carrie Jones, YouTube is at Dr. Carrie Jones, Instagram is dr.Carrie Jones. Podcast is Hello Hormones by Dr. Carrie Jones. And it's all hormonal information through the ears.
I'm so glad you're on YouTube too, because I'm just a big YouTube junkie.
I love that. Yes.
I had looked for you in the past and you weren't on there. And then, like, just recently we were chatting about getting on together. I went and looked and, like, oh, this is awesome. So
thanks.
I love to listen to podcasts on YouTube and stuff like that. So well, great. Well, thank you again for jumping on. I'll go ahead and click us off, but if you want to stick on for a second, and
love to.
I really appreciate you coming on here with us.
Thank you.
All right, let me click off. All right, I think it stopped streaming. So yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah,
I really
that was
appreciate
great.